Hello, this is Mrs. Garbutt and I'm Associate Director of the NET English Director team. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at a paper 1, question 4, and we're going to look through the question, have a little look through the extract. I'll show you how I would annotate it, and then we're going to do 3 peel paragraphs as well. Okay, so remember, by the time we get to this particular question, you'll have already gone through the extract a number of times because you'll have had 3 questions previous to this. So you wouldn't have had to reread it, but obviously we're going to at this point in time. I've kept the question as it is, and it says here to focus this part of your answer on the second part of the source from line 21 to the end. So I've kept it like this because I want you to see what I would normally do in a real exam. So again, I would then start to look at this and I would start to put my big line right across there. So instead of just sectioning that off, I want you to see that that you know that all of my answers are going to be in this this last part here. Okay. So this extract from The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, and this is the question that we've got, and it's got a statement and you have to explain to what extent do you agree. This is a 20-mark question, so I can't emphasise to you how important this is. By leaving this out or not giving it those full 3 peel paragraphs or 2 deep peel paragraphs, you could actually make the difference of 2 grades reduced on your GCSE. So we've got to make sure that we attempt this this particular question, and we also give it justice that's required for it. So let's have a little look at the statement. It says here, a student having read this section of the text said, the writer shows a lack of hope and despair of the main protagonist as she travels on the train. It makes me feel sorry for her because of how sad she seems. To what extent do you agree? So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, so the writer showed me the lack of hope. So lack of hope, I'm going to highlight that bit, and despair. The main protagonist as she travels on the train. Well, I don't need to highlight that. It makes me feel sorry. So this is what the student's saying, that they feel sorry for her because she's sad. Okay. And then you have to decide whether or not you agree and you actually feel sorry for her as well. Now, when I look at this agree, I know that I'm going to do 3 peel responses. And some of them I might agree, some of them I might disagree, and I might agree fully or disagree fully, or I might change. But I need to signpost that to the examiner so they can see clearly my understanding of this, my interpretation. So looking at the bullet points, they always link to the mark scheme. So when it says write about your own impression of the main protagonist's hopelessness, so I'm going to look at this is my impression, okay, because I need to explain to the examiner what I've understood from this, what I've gleaned from this. And then I want you to think about how you're going to evaluate this. So you need to explain how you've come to this conclusion, and you're going to use, even though it's not an AO2 question, I want you to think about what you're going to pull into this. So it could be, and this is the beauty of this question, it could be the fact that you're talking about language, it could be structure, it could be about imagery, it could be about anything that's symbolism in there. There are a whole variety of aspects that we can pull into this. And again, you're going to support your opinions with references to the text. So again, that's our quotations. Right, let's have a little look down. So we'll move down to the end of the extract. We're going to read through it first of all, and then we'll start to do our annotations. Okay, someone's phone is ringing, an incongruously joyful and upbeat song. They're slow to answer. It jingles on and on around me. I can feel my fellow commuters shift in their seats, rustle their newspapers and tap at their computers. The train lurches and sways around the bend, slowing as it approaches a red signal. I try not to look up. I try to read the free newspaper I was handed on my way into the station, but the words blur in front of my eyes, and nothing holds my interest. In my head, I can still see that little pile of clothes lying at the edge of the track, abandoned. Evening. The pre-mixed gin and tonic fizzes up over the lip of the can as I bring it to my mouth and sip. Tangy and cold, the taste of my first ever holiday with Tom, a fishing village on the Basque Coast in 2005. In the mornings we'd swim the half-mile to the little island in the bay, and in the afternoons we'd sit at a bar drinking strong, bitter gin and tonics. watching swarms of beach footballers playing chaotic 25-a-side games on the low-tide sands. I take another sip and another, and the can's already half empty, but it's okay. I have 3 more in the plastic bag at my feet. It's Friday, so I don't have to feel guilty about drinking on the train. TGIF. The fun starts here. It's going to be a lovely weekend. That's what they're telling us. Beautiful sunshine, cloudless skies. In the old days, we might have driven to Corley Wood and a picnic and the papers and spent all afternoon lying on a blanket in dappled sunlight drinking wine. We might have barbecued out back with friends or gone to the Rose and sat in the beer garden, faces flushing with sun and alcohol as the afternoon went on. Weaving home arm in arm, falling asleep on the sofa. Beautiful sunshine, cloudless skies, no one to play with, nothing to do. Living like this, the way I'm living at the moment, is harder in the summer when there is so much daylight, so little cover of darkness, when everyone is out and about, being flagrantly, aggressively happy. It's exhausting and it makes you feel bad if you're not joining in. The weekend stretches out ahead of me, 48 empty hours to fill. I lift the can to my mouth again, but there's not a drop left. Okay, so what I particularly like about this, I like at the beginning here. So remember the question is asking us that there's a lack of hope and despair, and that we feel sorry for her. Now here, I quite like what it says, an incongruously joyful and upbeat song. So straight away, I know that the incongruously and the joyful and upbeat, they juxtapose each other. Because when we're thinking about this incongruously really implies that it's inappropriate, so she seems quite angered. By this joyful and upbeat song. So it's almost like the fact that she's saying it's joyful and upbeat, it shows that it does bring pleasure. I also quite like the fact that there's this negative tone and they're slow to answer it. They're slow to answer. It jingles on and on around me. So we do have this negative tone here. So, and I think with this particular negative tone, it shows that she's really she's irritated by this, isn't she? It's almost like they should understand how agitated she is. Okay, so there's a lack of understanding here, not by her, but by the others. Squeeze it in there. Excellent. Okay. I think as well as that, when we're saying it jingles on and on at this point in time. So I think it's like the fact that she uses this repetition really kind of emphasises that she thinks it's gone on for like a length of time, this tedious length of time. Okay. At this point in time, do I feel sorry for it? Oh, I don't. I don't actually. So I'm going to put here that I don't feel sorry for her. I'll do that in capital letters so I know exactly where I'm going. Okay, so looking at that. And then I'm going to go on to this second quotation here. So I quite like here when it says, the train lurches and sways around the bend, slowing as it approaches a red signal. So I quite like the fact it's kind of lurches and it sways here. So I think that these verbs here, they really express how it's almost, it's awkward here. It's almost implying like they're staggering. And I think here, because it's staggering, it shows that she's really powerless. She has no control over this. And here, I think that clearly links where she's powerless to this red signal. And I think here we have some connotations of danger. You know, it could actually even be foreshadowing her safety. So, foreshadow safety. Yeah, so at this point, do I feel sorry for her? Yes, I do. I feel sorry for her here. Okay, moving on to the second part here. I really like this very last paragraph. So the weekend stretches out ahead of me. 48 hours to fill. So the fact that the weekend stretches out ahead of me here, I think it's almost like we've got some personification. I think it almost sounds like it's exhausting. It's not a time that she really appreciates, and I think that's because she's alone. I also think as well, when we're thinking about this, here, fill, it implies here, this verb implies that her weekend should be plentiful. Yet she doesn't feel like this. But it's not, just to give me a reminder. And then I really like this as well. But there's not a drop left. Now I think here, I think this is kind of like metaphorically. I think this is implying that that she's being drained of life. And because she's been drained of life, it perhaps implies that she's got no hope for the future. Okay, so we've got our clear quotations here. So we've got our 3. So we're going to start working our way through. And I think here, sorry, at this very last one, I feel sorry for her here. Right, so I'll put that one to one side. And we're going to work our way through, and we're going to respond to this one. So at this point in time, first of all, I don't agree with this, because remember it says, to what extent do you agree that I feel sorry for her? Now at the beginning, I think she's just really agitated. So at this moment in time, I don't really feel that she's got any sadness here. Like I say, I just think that she feels really kind of agitated, and that everyone should appreciate how she feels. So I'm going to start this off with initially, comma, I disagree with the student's statement. That the writer shows a lack of hope and despair through the juxtaposition of the fawn's ring being incongruously and joyful and upbeat, as it emphasises how impatient she is by the ringing, which is reinforced through the negative tone they are slow. To answer, comma, it jingles on and on around me. So the adverb of slow, I think this highlights how irritated she is. This highlights how irritated she is by the passengers lack of consideration. It's almost like they should understand that she's agitated, as though they should understand her agitation. Okay, I think also that repetition of on and on implies it's continued at a tedious length. So it just reflects that she's got a lack of patience, really. So here, the repetition of on and on implies it continued at a tedious length. Therefore, the hyperbole, because she's exaggerating, it's gone on and on, reflects her lack of patience and understanding, I think. Alright, we'll have a look at that and see if we can add anything else to it. So, initially, I disagree with the student's statement that the writer shows a lack of hope and despair through the juxtaposition of the phone's rigging being incongruously and joyful and upbeat, as it emphasises how impatient she is by the ring. could have had a full stop there and continued with a separate sentence, but that's fine. So here we've said here that I disagree. I think that shows here that how emphasises that she's impatient. So again, I don't feel sorry because I think she's just shown she's impatient. They're slow to answer it. It jingles on and on around me. The adverb slow, this highlights how she's irritated by the passenger's lack of consideration, so they should understand her agitation. And I think really when I'm saying that I disagree with this, I think the fact that I'm saying about the agitation, the fact that she's irritated as well links to this, and the repetition of on and on implies it continued at a tedious length. Therefore, the hyperbole reflects her lack of patience and understanding. So I think that's right. I think I disagree at this point in time. Okay, so let's move on to our second quotation here. So our second one, so now here, remember I've said that I do feel sorry for at this point in time, so I'm going to change here. So I'm going to say, however, I agree with the statement through the personification of the train as we've put that it lurches and sways. So lurches and sways. So this is producing it's quite an awkward imagery, isn't it? So an awkward imagery as it's like almost staggers. And I think so therefore the movement is uncomfortable. So, however, I agree with the statement through the personification of the train as it lurches and sways, producing an awkward imagery as it almost staggers, therefore the movement is uncomfortable. And I think it shows the protagonist's like anger as she's powerless and unable to control the journey. So, uncomfortable, I'm going to put and shows the protagonist's anger, what did I say? Anger, as she is powerless and unable to control the train or the journey. We could even mention the metaphorical journey of life that shows that she's unable to control that. So, yeah, I think we'll just add that in as well. Okay, so I'm going to put here. So, metaphorically, this may also reflect her journey in life as she is unable to think about her future. Now I think the next part that we've got really links to that. You know, we talk about the red signal as well. So I'm going to put here furthermore. So saying to the examiner, I'm going to give you something else here. We're going to go a little bit deeper. So furthermore, this links to the approaching red signal. So we've just embedded our quote in there, which may have connotations of danger. So perhaps foreshadowing, her safety. Therefore, I feel sorry for the female who is sad, getting those keywords in, due to her lack of power, making her seem vulnerable. And weak. Okay, let's have a little look. So I've got here, however, I agree with the statement, move that way, through the personification of the train as it lurches and sways, producing an awkward imagery as it almost staggers. Therefore, the movement is uncomfortable and shows the protagonist's anger as she is powerless and unable to control the train or the journey. Metaphorically, this could also reflect her journey in life as she is unable to think about her future. Furthermore, this links to the approaching red signal, which may have connotations of danger, perhaps foreshadowing her safety. Therefore, I feel sorry for the female who is sad due to her lack of power, making her seem vulnerable and weak. Okay, and we'll go on to the last one. So move that one over and go into our final quote here. So, at the end of the extract, the writer shows the protagonist's sadness through, again, we've got personification, so through the personification of, and I'm going to put my quote in here, the weekend stretches out it there. I'm going to say making it sound, making it sound exhausting. And not a time she appreciates. And I think possibly because she's alone, isn't she? Possibly. Because she is alone. Okay. Now I really like this kind of imagery of time, so I'm going to put here also, so I'm setting the example, I'm going to go a bit deeper here. Also the imagery of time, and then it's here, isn't it, where it says 48 empty hours to fill. Implies that the weekend, and I'm going to put which is ahead of her because we're looking into the future, should be plentiful, I think. Should be plentiful. But then I think here, yeah, this, I think it juxtaposes the empty can. So where am I going? Right, yeah, it juxtaposes the empty can. Because then it says here, but there's not a drop left. Which I think here may metaphorically I think it could really reflect her hope for the future, or her lack of hope for the future. Her lack of hope for the future. As she, I think she's been drained as she's been drained of all optimism. So, and then I'm going to put here, consequently, I disagree and agreed with the students statement as the protagonist shows a lack of hope for the future, but is angered by the passengers' actions, as she feels, I think she's irrelevant in society. Which yeah, I think it heightens her despair. Right, let's have a little look at this end part then. So, at the end of the extract, the writer shows the protagonist's sadness through the personification of "the weekend stretches out ahead of me," making it sound exhausting and not a time she appreciates, possibly because she's alone. Also, the imagery of time, 48 empty hours to fill, implies that the weekend, which is ahead of her, should be plentiful, yet this juxtaposes the empty can, but there's not a drop left, which may metaphorically reflect her lack of hope for the future, as she has been drained of all optimism. Consequently, I disagreed and agreed with the student's statement, as the protagonist shows a lack of hope for the future, but is angered by the passenger's actions, as she feels irrelevant in society, which heightens her despair. So I think you'll probably be able to see how we've looked at the question, we've looked at our keywords, we've been able to identify those. We've also picked out 3 key quotations. I'm sure you would be able to find different ones in there. But again, it's your evaluation, as long as you can show the examiner your evaluation. And I think we've gone into enough detail to evaluate our point of view as well. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want any further information, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Thank you.